So welcome to the As Told by You podcast. I'm Brian Arnold and this is Bill Grant.
Hey.
We are business partners and we just wanted to discuss marketing and business development with entrepreneurs and marketing directors in the Columbia area. So we've just started inviting all of our friends in, all of our guests are professionals and business owners in the area, and we just want to get to know them and get to hear their story, their perspective of their story. So the As Told by You podcast gives you an opportunity to share your business thoughts, your training thoughts, your marketing thoughts, and just dive into how to generate awareness for your organization.
And so far through all of this, we've done conversations with relatively new businesses, people who are just figuring out kind of where their audience is and who they want to talk to, all the way up through folks that have been in it for 20, 25 years that have an established business, that understand their audience, understand their market. And the conversations go all over the place, which is really interesting. It's not just marketing, it's not just entrepreneurship or business, how to develop a business. It's been all over, from media literacy to PR to understanding what's enough. When is it enough? When do I not need to scale anymore? All that kind of stuff. It's been an interesting conversation so far.
And I've been excited to hear from, it's been also cool that some of the guests we brought in, I've known them, you didn't know them at all. Mm-hmm. And in other cases, you've brought them in, I didn't have any idea who they were, and you knew them very well. Mm-hmm. And then we've had a couple that we both know. Yeah. And to see those dynamics and how the inside stories and the relationships just between the three of us sitting around talking has been very fun.
And hopefully what we can look forward to over the next little while, however long we keep doing this. Hopefully what we can look forward to is having a wide variety of folks come on and talk about business. But what we love the idea of is business owners, but also business people, communications directors, marketing directors, anyone who kind of can talk about this stuff, just talking about their messaging and how they talk to their audiences and where their audiences come from. And I think it's fascinating how many people that we talk to where digital marketing is not their first thought. It's how do I maintain relationships? How do I let people know that I'm their friend and that I'm here and that I'm supporting the community? And I think all of that comes together to form a really rounded message. And I love the conversations we've had so far.
You read a lot of books, listen to a lot of books. I do the same thing. We're constantly gathering information, and it's just so refreshing to get information to improve our business and help others improve their business, because that's ultimately our goal, is to just help other businesses achieve their success. And then that's part of our core values of our partnership and collaboration, where we get in there with them and want to see them succeed just as much.
Yeah, and I think what's great is that sitting on this side of the table when the guest is over there, I'll hear something that the guest is saying and I'll be like, you know what? We need to be doing that too. Mm-hmm. We need to be volunteering for causes that matter to us. We need to be reaching out to people just to say, how you doing? And let's go to lunch and haven't talked to you in a while, and we get so busy with our day-to-day operations that kind of stuff kind of gets put on the back burner, and I think it should be a front burner thing. And I love hearing those things from guests, and when they start talking about stuff that I really hadn't considered, and so we get to grow from it, we get to learn from it too, which is great.
Yeah, certainly. We are a full-service marketing agency that specializes in video production, video content creation, and we tend to default to that video stuff. And then when you hear someone come in and say, you really need to be volunteering, you need to be giving back, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. And they're generally saying it to how they operate their business, but it's one of those things that we check yourself.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. What is your motivation?
Right.
Why are you doing it? Well, let's talk about why we formed this partnership and why the change from Cinema Couture. You notice the Cinema Couture sign is still above me here in the office, and Cinema Couture is still a brand. I want to talk a little bit about why we decided to form As Told By and what our goal is here.
We are coming up on our 2-year anniversary.
Yeah, crazy, right? In the first 6 or 8 months, we were still behind the scenes and planning,
Yeah.
and putting everything together. But yeah, November of 2019 was our official launch, which is a funny time to launch a business.
That was the official launch, but we were operating
Yeah.
2 years ago
Yeah.
in full capacity. And
Yeah.
well, I always, whenever someone brings it up, how you guys got together, I always go back to the idea that you wanted to find an opportunity to bridge that video production and the marketing agency portion of it. Right. And with my marketing background, I just was like, yes, let's do it. Because you're absolutely right. There is a gap between, here's a video production company, they're going to just do what they do, interpret your vision and make it as best as possible.
Right.
But in reality, you can never get it exactly right, because how can you get inside that person's head?
Right.
And then the marketing side, we just want to be able to help promote that video once it's done and make sure our effort's been worthwhile. So I think that lane that we've kind of carved out for ourselves is something that we hope is going to be valuable.
Yeah. Well, and the best relationships we have, I think, are those clients where, they kind of come to us and say, here's the thing we want to try to accomplish. We feel like a video can do that. What do you think we should do? And then we can just jump in with them and become a sort of, super friends. We all get together and battle our own way to win the day. And I think that's super important for us, because there were so many times over the course of my video career before we started our partnership where I would make something beautiful that everybody was super happy with, and we didn't really know what to do with it once it was finished, and it just didn't get seen. And for me, the hardest part about making a great video is that if people get to see it, then it becomes valuable to them, and if no one sees it, then it might as well never have been made. And so that's what our goal is here, is to make sure that when we make this beautiful, wonderful thing that suits people well, that they get to use it. And we can help them use it. And I think I'm still very excited about the opportunities that we have to help people do that.
Where do you think people fall down on that? Do they fall down on the strategy portion? Do they fall down on the implementation portion?
I think what happens a lot of times with people is, number one, I think they get very involved in their day-to-day operations. So, if they're a marketing director, a communication director, they're spinning a whole bunch of plates, and this is one more plate that they have to spin. I think that's a big part of it. They just get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff they have to do. But then the other thing is that the platforms and audiences and people change so quickly, change so often, that they would have to be kind of following it day to day to understand where the eyeballs are, what are people watching right now. Like my wife, spring of last year was on Facebook. Now my wife is not on Facebook at all. She's on TikTok now. She doesn't do anything but watch TikTok. She doesn't get on Facebook at all. And I think if you're following where your audience is going, that's another big part of it. How do you get it? How do you position it right? I watched another thing yesterday, a guy talking about Instagram and the fact that the way that you're going to get the most importance and sort of favor in the algorithm is if you use the features that Instagram puts out. So Instagram introduces Reels, they want you to use Reels. So as soon as you start using Reels, Instagram is going to give you favor because you're using the feature that they put out. And there's those little things like that I think it's very easy to get behind on those things. No fault of anybody's, but the core of marketing never changes. You want to make sure to get your message out to the people who need to hear it. But the tools change and the platforms change, and I think it's kind of difficult for people to follow that sometimes unless it's what they're passionate about, and that's kind of how we are able to do it. Is I consume media all the time, wanting to make sure that I know where are these platforms, where are people's eyeballs, where are the audiences going, and finding those audiences and making sure we're reaching them are the most important thing for us.
Yeah. The other, I think, element is that, like you said, marketing directors, communication directors, small business owners are so overwhelmed with all the stuff they have to do, we just become an extension of their marketing department.
Right.
Where we can do the postings, we can do the social media, we can do the video production, we can help them devise the strategy, write the scripts, and it just lessens that burden.
And we just fill in those blanks where
the gaps,
where they happen to be. And I think so often our best clients, our best relationships are those where, we kind of lean on each other, the client and us, we lean on each other for different things, and all we're doing is trying to help them solve a problem. And that's where, marketing never changes, right? Mm-hmm. Marketing is the same in 1980 as it is now. It's just helping people solve problems. But paying attention to those little ways of doing that, when we started last year, I guess it was probably spring, where we started understanding that what we wanted to do is to create not just one great video out of a piece of content, but we need 5 or 6 small videos to go along with that, so that you can reach different people on different platforms and have them different screen sizes and different things like that, so that they're getting the more bang for their buck. It's not just one video that we're making. We're making a variety of things so that it can help them get their message across to different audiences.
Certainly the pandemic has definitely helped the mindset, where now everyone knows they can use video and how important it is. And like you said, the return on the investment. Yeah. One day of shooting 6 videos, that sort of thing is, because you need to drip it out on an everyday basis.
And it's, people will, you'll get out of top of mind so quickly, if you don't reinforce it, Mm-hmm. And so, and what's happened fast forward a year later is that so many people are using video on their website, social, all of these things, that if you don't have it, you become a little suspect. You become like, why aren't you showing people who you are? Because everybody else is.
But then there's like a cross between the authentic, the YouTube channel, what is that displaying, but the authentic cell phone video. Are you doing it yourself? Who's doing it? And then the professional videos that really tell the story, and that balance between the two is something that we struggle with.
Yeah. And what you're trying to do is to essentially form a relationship with your clients, where when you're trying to reach them and give them the information you want them to have, but also help them, and that's what so many people are trying to do, especially when we work with nonprofits and organizations in the community. It's so important that they have a mission, they have a passion for helping people, and that's what they're there to do. And so the more they can communicate with people, the more they can engage, the more they can keep that conversation going, the more they're going to be able to help people. And I feel like it's such a powerful thing for us to be able to help them do that, And
you get a little reward at the end too. Yeah. Especially that good email.
Yeah, that's right.
The
that's
no
right.
email is like, what did we do wrong?
Why, like is that approved? We didn't hear back from them. Does that mean it's approved? Yeah, it's every time I get a message
must be approved. I just saw it on Facebook.
That's right. Every time I get a message from an ad agency say they cried when they saw the video, I was like, that's what we're trying to do. We want to make business people cry. It's
like giving your gift to your mom. If she doesn't cry, it's not a good enough gift.
Exactly.
Well, we look forward to sharing more stories with you, more stories of our friends and our other fellow business owners in the Columbia area. We have a couple sneak peeks of what some of the episodes are coming up right after this.
And I would say too, like and subscribe.
The red button, hit the red button.
We're going to be showing you a few samples of podcasts that we've done over the last couple of months, just some conversations we've had with our friends, which is really exciting for us to put together. We've been so fortunate to have some great people come on and talk to us. We're going to be releasing these once a week over the next couple of months, and so you'll get to see the full podcast as they are released. So we start off with our friend Lee Pikovich. So Lee owns a company called Something Borrowed. It's exciting to be able to sit down and talk with Lee. I've been friends with Lee for years and never really knew how he got into it. But he talks to us about being a great salesman and what that really means, which is maintaining relationships. We don't talk about TikTok or Instagram or those digital ways of marketing. We talk about maintaining relationships and keeping in touch with people, doing business the way our grandparents did. It's a really exciting conversation, one of my favorites, and here's a little sample.
What is your way you maintain connection with your regular clients?
It's the same.
Emails? How do you do
It's
it?
the same way that you keep your friends your friends. It's the exact same way, right? So you've got some buddies you hang out with, I'm sure. It's the same way. You got to go see them every once in a while. You got to call them every once in a while. You got to do those things. I try to say that sales is nothing hard but making friends. That's all it is. And don't lead with a sale. Like go in there and actually have a genuine interest in people. I mean, sales is really not hard, y'all. Like just go in there and say, if you like the guy, just talk to somebody. Like, hey, we could be friends, great. And eventually, and I did this all the time in the banking world. I wouldn't wear a name tag. A lot of folks in the corporate world say, go there, handshake, business card, right? I absolutely, when I ran this Lexington Young Professionals group, I had 400 members. And so usually they were younger, 21 to 45. And I would tell them, don't listen to that. I think it doesn't work because here's what happens. Great to see you, okay, in the trash, right? Like that doesn't work. Go in there in a little group of people and just start talking and see who you can connect with. And eventually they're going to go, what do you do? You know? And then finally you're like, oh, well, I'm a banker or I'm an investment guy. And they go, oh, well, you've already built the rapport. We're already friends. We're talking. And you didn't lead with, I know you don't want anything from me because you didn't lead with it, right? Yeah. The next thing you know, they're like, oh, well, I've got an old 401k. I need something. Oh, great. It's very easy if you do it that way. And so it's nothing more than just like you do with your friends. Every once in a while you got to call them. Every once in a while you got to go hang out and just check in with them. If you hear they're sick, call them, or send them a text. Say, hey, I heard you're sick. How do you feel better? And that's all it is. You don't necessarily want something all the time because that's what they're getting from the other guys. Like they're getting called, they're getting those things when they want something. Hey, here's a card. Please call me and give me some business. You know what I mean? Not act like you don't want it. Act like you're like, hey, just say, hey, you doing okay? Great. Happy Easter, whatever. You know.
So it's a very old school way of doing business.
That's where it is.
And I love that idea. I hear Gary Vaynerchuk talk about this all the time, that your grandparents are more prepared to do business in the modern era than you are because they just want to maintain relationships. Yeah. And then that's so important. And we hear you talk about the fact that relationships and referrals are how you get most of your business. Yeah. And there's a way to make that happen. There's a way to keep that up. And I think that's some great stuff. Next, we have Heather Singleton. We got to know her when she was with United Way. She's gone off to start her own PR company. She's working with Central Carolina Community Foundation right now. A really cool person, a bright, shiny, happy person. She's like brightens up every room that she walks into. We love having a conversation with her. We talk a little bit about PR and how PR relates to company culture, how company culture promotes the marketing and how all of that works together. And it's a really good conversation. It's something that we haven't really heard anybody talk about up until we talked to Heather. How do you present authenticity without having to say it?
That's a really great question and a really valid point. One of the things that I had been privileged to do since the start of 2021 was a second contract with the Central Carolina Community Foundation.
You're very busy.
You know, I am.
Yeah.
And that contract was in conjunction with the Association of Fundraising Professionals. And Jamisha Shackerford, who's with the Community Foundation, had this marvelous idea that we needed a safe space for Black, Indigenous people of color who are in the fundraising field in the Midlands area to have a conversation or multiple conversations about what fundraising looks like to them. And so one of the conversations that we had on a Wednesday, and I'll never forget, was on authenticity. Like, how can you meet people where they are and mean it and value them, not just their dollar, not just their time because they're volunteers, but also how do you stand behind the mission and culture of your organization while presenting your authentic self? For me, I ask questions. Like, authentically, that's who I am, and that's only because I like to get to know people. When you're having conversations with folks, people can really tell when you're about to BS them, like in true form. But when you're having the conversation about authenticity, having the presence of actually being there for the conversation, right? Listening, valuing, responding to takeaways, those kinds of things. People are looking for the folks who stand by their word, and that is authenticity. But for that, what is your story? What is your word of like meaning? Like, what does that mean to them? And what does that mean to you? You know, like trying to figure out why you think the way that you think and why you approach things the way that you do. That is at the core of your authentic being. Like having this conversation with somebody, not because of what they can do for you, but just because you want to know more about them. And I think that that's where PR shines through. I think that's where marketers can find their sweet spot, and knowing that whoever you are is going to come out at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And interested is interesting. That's why I've always heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never heard that, but that's a really good point.
Yeah. If I'm interested in you, then you're going to find me fascinating.
Yeah.
I read that in Dale Carnegie. That's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's one of them.
Got to find that.
Dude, it's a great book.
So next we have Jeff Lawler. So Jeff is a friend of Brian's from the real estate business from way back. I know Jeff as a networker, as somebody that's been in networking groups that I've been in over the years. We talked to Jeff about networking in a community that you're not familiar with, and he talks about volunteering. He talks about finding things that light you up, that get you excited about being involved in the community, and that eventually gets you in contact with people. It's a super interesting conversation, and Jeff is a real dynamic guy, is a real interesting guy to talk to.
In real estate, you market the house as an agent and you market yourself probably even more.
Sure.
So how do you go about marketing yourself so that you have that pipeline of 6 to 10 clients?
Sure. Real estate's about relationships. I think everyone knows that. You just said it earlier. Hey, I've got a relationship. I've been this person for a long time. That's important. You want to be able to trust your realtor. You want to be able to understand that they are ethical, professional, and responsible. That they don't make mistakes. Even though we're all human, you have to be perfect. You make one bad mistake and you're going to hear about it. So I tend not to make mistakes, but also talk with them, let them know that I'm there as a resource. I'm always there throughout the entire process. I think that's huge. You have to be there. When I first got into real estate, I heard that my agent doesn't call me back and this and that. Now, that might be true in a couple of instances, but you always have to be there and always have to be willing to go the extra mile for your clients. I think another big thing is negotiation. You want to be able to negotiate properly and on behalf of your client, and sometimes make offers that, hey, we really want all this done. And in the selling market, that's a little tough because they may say, we're not going to do anything. But most of the time, people are reasonable. And I think the biggest thing is the art of the deal, that they should get a return on their investment and they should get a fair deal on the other side, and everyone wins.
Yeah, a win-win or no deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. I think what you're saying too is that when we talk about it being about relationships, you're saying that your marketing is doing that great job for people.
Sure.
And they'll help you start relationships with new people. Obviously, you're not reselling the same couples or families or people over and over again in a short period of time, because obviously when they buy a house, they're going to stay there a minute.
Sure.
But what you're doing is creating that experience so that when people go through that experience, they say, you got to use my guy because he just did a great job.
Absolutely.
So next on the podcast, we've got Sherrod Duvall. So Sherrod and I have known each other, I think, like 12 years at this point. We've been doing business together for a really long time. He'll hire me to shoot stuff. I'll hire him to edit stuff or shoot stuff with me. So he's a filmmaker from way back. He and I started doing music videos together. We talk a little bit about the music industry, which is kind of an interesting conversation. And then we also talk about his background in filmmaking and how that moved him into where he is now, which is making full-length documentaries. It's a very interesting conversation between two of us, not too filmmaker-centric, not too inside baseball. We talk a lot about media literacy and how to understand sort of the current world. And it's a really interesting conversation. Check it out. I remember talking to you a lot of times over things, you called it media literacy. Mm-hmm. Like I would get somebody to share an article with me and I go, I don't have any idea how to tell whether this is real or not.
Right.
Like, I don't have any idea how to know whether this is a credible source, whether this person's saying the truth, or, you know, and I'd send them over to you and we would talk about those things.
Right.
Is that still part of stuff that you do?
Yeah,
is
media
helping?
literacy is a huge part of it. As a matter of fact, we're working on a bill right now with Frank Baker and Seth Rose and Ray Felder. We're not working with Ray. Ray's on the committee, and she has been very supportive of the bill, HB 332, which is trying to get media literacy introduced into the curriculum in South Carolina, particularly in ELA, in English.
Yeah.
Right? Because the way that we read and write has changed.
Right.
And that essentially is what media literacy is all about. It's teaching humans this new language that we've kind of been thrown on us as a society, which is now we get all of our information from a screen. Mm-hmm. Well, what does that mean?
And randomly from
right,
a screen.
and randomly.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is we're trying to put the rules that we learned in regular English class onto this device, and they don't mesh. Mm-hmm. Which is why, you know, one of the many results of us not being media literate is disinformation and misinformation. It's because we're trying to apply the rules of another medium to this medium. And it's so interesting when you talk to me about media literacy, when I talk to people about it, because people act as if it's a new concept, but it really isn't, right? This same thing happened when books became a thing.
But it's,
Like
but
the
it's
same
something
way,
that we've had to contend
the
with.
same way that phones
printing
became
press
a
is
thing.
probably-
The printing press, yeah. Like when
Books have been around for a while.
The printing press is what I meant. Thank you so much for that, Brian. But but when I say books, I specifically mean when the printing press came around and made books cheap. Now you didn't have to go to, back then, you would have to go to a professor. The only person that had access to that knowledge was the scientist at the university. Now every other student in class has the same book. Mm-hmm. Right? And the same thing happened. You had a proliferation of fake news because now everybody had a book or could make a book. And it created this society where no one knew up from down, no one knew left from right, but it was only because this new medium had been introduced and people have been trying to apply the rules of whatever they used
But
before.
man, the volume
to
of
now.
it has just gone
Just like then.
exponential.
I mean,
you know?
the volume of it then
Yeah.
went exponential, just like the volume of it is now. But we have to do something that's very hard as a society, which is what they had to do. They literally had to change the way they educated the human population because of books and the printing press. And that is the same thing we have to do now. And that's what I advocate for as a media literacy advocate and educator is we have to change the way that we're learning.
Thank you so much for watching this little sample that we've got for you. We're so excited to get these podcasts out to the world. We've been doing them for a little while now. We're trying to get enough people that we had a good sample and we understood kind of where the conversation was going, and we've been very excited to be a part of this. Look for them coming out every week over the next couple of months, and we'll try to keep this going. If you're interested in being on the podcast, send me an email, bill@astoldby.agency, and I'd love to talk to you about being on the podcast. You can find it on our Instagram, Facebook, our YouTube, and anywhere you find podcasts. So thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel for more stuff coming soon.